Hi, and welcome to Unit 1 of 519 Statistics class. And if you haven't gotten a chance, please make sure that you have watched my syllabus video and also the overview for the module. And I'm going to cover week 1 here so that we can spend our time more focused on Unit 2 in our face-to-face lab. So, first, I would love to go over that we have a sample report, and it's right here. And this is just an idea of what an executive report would look like. And I'll point out a few things. Here we've got an introduction that always tells you what the purpose is and who's in this report, right? So we always want to give the demographics and the sample size. And I have a title. It should be whatever this report is about, so don't use body of report. This file is in your Canvas shell, so you can copy and use it, but just make sure that you replace that. So you really want to organize your titles by your dependent variable or the test or whatever it was you're doing. And you'll see here, I just have a one-page report. I have a few bullet points. This is actually more text than you probably should see, but I'm kind of telling you how to write the report in the format, right? And here I'm giving you some sample stats. And just kind of pointing out you only need one page to write text. And then here's what the appendix looks like. This is an APA title, Table 1. This is all capitalized, it's italicized, it's a descriptive title. Here's what a chart looks like. There are no vertical lines in APA, so you can never copy and paste a chart from SPSS into your report. It's best to use one of my templates and then just type in the numbers. And you'll notice here, the way it's done in APA is you don't write out mean, it's an italicized capital M and an italicized capital SD for standard deviation, right? And so there's a lot of stuff that's going to come out on your SPSS table, and you don't put it in. You put in what is standard here. Now I have an example of a table, the headers above. Here's an example of a figure, and the title's all on one line here, and just this figure 1 is italicized, and you'll notice this is not, each word's not capitalized, right? And just for fun, this says relation of following lab notes to grade in your case study. So the more you follow the lab notes, the better grade you make. And here's the relationship of APA errors to homework grades, right? So this APA stuff that I'm pointing out is really important. Now, you're going to get feedback from the TAs to help you get better by the time you get to the case study. It is a learning process. Okay. So the other handout that we have in this week in the lab is a little cheat sheet for how to do APA stats. And you'll see again how it's shown here. You know, if you say the average age is 19.22, then you put the standard deviation in parentheses. And later on, it's going to be really important that you refer back to this for ANOVA's correlation and regression. So next, I really want to focus on these lab notes. This is critical. So we've given you this 1-2-pager every week that tells you everything you need to know. So just to give you a rundown, it kind of tells you what we're going to cover, what are the important topics, the objectives, helpful tips for completing homework. I'm going to tell you what this is. These are the mistakes that students make on their homework. So we go through and think about the mistakes that students make most, and we write them in the tips so you can avoid it. All right, here's more information. And then we always have a note of all the things we're looking for in your homework, just to kind of remind you, and that's it. So let me get to our content. So and each one will look like that. And as we move into stats, there'll be a little more stat specific information for each test. All right, so here, week one, we want to introduce you to Excel and SPSS. Now, you know, you're reading your materials, you're getting used to the language, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, about means and central tendency for unit 2. But right here, I just want you to be comfortable opening up Excel, understanding how it works. And in order to do this, I'm going to put this back, and I'm going to use I'm going to put the lab data up here. Okay. So why are we even teaching you Excel? And the reason is sometimes you don't have SPSS, and some things can be done easier in Excel. There's great graph chart capabilities. It's, you know, you can send an Excel file where it's hard to send an SPSS one. And I always use it for quick calculations. I use it as a calculator. So if you're not familiar with it, it can be very powerful, and I use it for a lot of different things. Just to give you an example, and I might have one up here. Let me look and see. I use it for my corporate survey reports. Let's see if it'll find a recent one. Here's an example of what Excel looks like when I'm using it for, when you print, this would print very nicely. For me to give clients survey data, I'm writing some things, and unlike Word, it's not moving around. So I find it to be very useful. So that's just kind of, you know, it can look a million different ways, and you really don't know it's Excel. But anyway, this is just an example of why I use it. Okay, so we have here on the right a data set we're going to work with. And first, I want to show you how to sort and filter. And I pretty much just use filter because it does both. And I'm going to widen this out just a little bit. That's good enough. Okay, so we'll actually need to open it up a little bit more so we can see all the tools, because as you see, as I open it up, here comes sort and filter up here. All right. So when I click this, I can sort things, or I can do a filter, and in the filter I can sort. So let's say I want to, this already looks like it's sorted by company name. So let's sort by exchange, right? So I'm going to just sort A to Z, and this changes my whole data set by the type of exchange here. This is some stock market stuff. And it does that. And you can get more complicated. You can do a custom sort. And here I could say, all right, we'll do it by the exchange, then do it by number of employees. So like exchange is my first level, add a level. So next I want you to do it by employees. So I kind of know who's the biggest, smallest to largest, okay. So it's sorting by two things, right? So on the Amex, this is the least amount of employees to the largest, and the NASDAQ least to the largest. So you can see how you can do that. Now, the other thing I can do is I can do a filter. And if I just click this button, it's going to put a little filter tab up here on each column. And here, let's say I only care about Chicago. I'll click, I'll select all. And if this is too small to see, you know, you can always just make this bigger. I'm going to click Chicago, click OK. And it's reduced it, right? But I could also, within this filter tab, I can sort A to Z, right? I can't do that custom sort. So that's what the regular sort is good for. But what I can do, which essentially kind of does the same thing, is I could say I'm limited to Chicago, and hey, I only want people who, I only want companies that have over 500 million. Let's just, or their sales is only 500 million, right? And here, so I could unselect, or actually, that might be easiest. But you could see what I could do is I could unclick all of these up to 500. And then it would kind of create this custom database for me. So that is how you use sort and filter. Very useful. And it's much more powerful in Excel than it is in SPSS. Okay. So the next thing is looking at formulas. So let's say I want to know in this group how much the Amex is worth. The way I've narrowed it down. All I do is I just select the cells I'm interested in. And I need to, there we go, make this big. And see, I've selected this here, and down here it tells me the average, the count, and the sum. So very quickly, if I'm like, oh, what is this? Well, here it is, without doing a formula at all. Okay. Next, how do you format data? So this is, some of it's bold, some of it's blue. Maybe I want a dollar sign here. One thing is, if you want to format it all, this little button right here, you click on it and it highlights everything. So whatever change, let's say, no, I'm old, I can't read, I want to make it 11. It moves the font to the size of 11. If I want to change the font to a different type, whatever. So you can also do this, like if I want to do this whole column, I can do it that way, or this whole row. Let's see, alignment and font. The other thing is not just the font, but if I want, let's say I, for some reason, want this centered, I could do that as well. And so you do want to look at your sheet, and if you're sending it to a client, make sure that it looks desirable. So if I was sending this to a client, I would, for me, I would right click here, format cells, and I would click currency and give it a dollar symbol. And do I want 2 decimal places? Probably not, probably 0, right? So that jumps out to you more that it's money that we're talking about. So just a few ideas of things that you can do. Also, just so you know, I'm just going to right click here and go back to format cells. Here you have the number, you can change the number of decimal points. I frequently do this when I have an SPSS table. I'll throw it into Excel, change it to do decimal points, and that saves me a ton of time. Okay, so for alignment, here you can wrap the text where it fits in the cell. You could shrink, you could merge, but probably what's most useful is, for me, I want it centered and I want it centered, right? Which is going to change that, but that's another useful thing that you can do. Okay, so header row and freezing panes. So this is already done. You'll see this top stays the same, right? No matter what I do, which is great, really helpful. Now, I can do that anywhere. Let's say I want the companies to also remain frozen. I'm going to select here underneath the row and next to the column. And I'm going to have to make this big again to see it. And I didn't, page layout, it might be here. It's called freeze panes, and sometimes I'll just type it in here, freeze panes. So I'm going to freeze the first column, right? And so that has actually undone the top, and I want them both done. So unfreeze panes, and then there should be an option to do them both together. And if I find it, usually this is when somebody in the class who's an Excel whiz tells me right where it is. I work on a Mac primarily. So when I'm switching off to a PC, sometimes I forget where things are. Really was be thinking it would be here. But I will get back to you when I figure out where it is. Okay. So anyway, that can be useful to help when you're doing a lot of searching with an Excel. Okay. So when you're cleaning data, you always want to save a copy of the original file. And this is especially true for you all that are going to be doing a dissertation. You never delete data. It's considered unethical. So SPSS will handle most of it, and you don't need to delete it. But if you do, you always keep an original data file and then remove something. So let me see if there's, let me undo the filters. Clear. All right, so I'm going to clear. And if I look down, that's interesting. So you can see the formatting that I did applied to only this selection. There's nothing really to clean up here. I mean, I just made it look terrible, but before I did that, I could just do a couple of undos and get that off. So undo, undo, undo. So there we go. Now it looks decent, although I would have added the $sign. Anyway, you know, if you had missing data, which you're going to have in some of your files, you're going to want to just select, you know, if they don't have the data you're looking for, in real life, you would always save that original copy and then delete the data. And here I just selected it. Whoops. And right click and delete. And that would have deleted any data that was not important. So for example, if I had, you know, if I was only concerned about sales and then I had some companies, but I didn't have their sales information, then I might delete those out. And that's what I'm talking about, cleaning your data. So if you have someone go in your survey and they don't go to the consent form, or they go to the consent form and answer the first question and they're out, you would first clear it with your chair and then possibly delete that. But you wouldn't have to, because SPSS would know they didn't have any data there and wouldn't include it. Okay. Let me move on to SPSS. So the way you move a file, this is really important, is you have to close it in Excel to open it. And let me just say a little bit about SPSS. So this is when you want to do hardcore data analysis. You can do most everything in SPSS and Excel, but it doesn't have the accuracy and the validity. So sometimes I've sorted a file to death and it starts to get out of whack, right? And that will never happen in SPSS. So I also use it to recode data. I don't recode data in Excel. It's just too dangerous and there's too many errors. And it's just done very properly in SPSS. So frequently when I get a file, It comes in Excel. I have to do a lot of work to it in Excel. Then I get it into SPSS. Then I put it back into Excel to do some things. And so I'm kind of working back and forth. And that's what I want to give you a sense of how to do here. So when you open Excel and SPSS, you have to close the file, right? So I'm going to save this to my desktop. Okay. I'm going to close it because it will not open in SPSS. I'm going to go down here and pull up SPSS. And this is another student's data, but I'm going to open data. And I have two screens here, so I'm just kind of pulling everything where you can see it. I'm going to go to my desktop. And the first thing you're going to do, because you look here and your file isn't there. Well, because it's only looking for SPSS and you want to change this to Excel. And here are all my Excel files. So I'm going to say open. And what's coming up for me down here is it's saying, do I want to read the variable names from the first row? Yes, most of the time you do. Make sure that's checked. Make sure I've got the right sheet. So sometimes if there's multiple sheets, you want to make sure you're pulling the right one. I'm going to say okay. And now I have pulled this into SPSS, right? And it looks quite different. And I want to just show you what SPSS is about. It has 3 windows. So, and you can tell by looking down here, you have a data view and a variable view. Okay, sorry for the pause. I wanted to shut the door so I didn't have some background noise. Okay, so your data view kind of looks like Excel, but it doesn't function the same way because this is a true and proper database. And then you have variable view. And here's where I would come and rename all my variables. So it didn't really, it did not take it from the first row. And I'll tell you why. And we will want to do this again. Well, I closed it, didn't I? Okay. So let me look on my desktop because I think this is important. This is like the kind of error that would drive me crazy and you'd be wondering about. Okay, so for some reason, did I pull in the wrong data file? All Illinois companies. Let me just see how many are here. Whoops. Okay, all Illinois companies. I feel like I pulled up in the wrong thing, but anyway, okay. Let me close that. Let me close this. No. Open, desktop. I'm gonna go to Excel. Open. Now, oh, okay, I opened Chicago companies. That could be why. All Illinois companies, okay. There we go, and you can see this now worked. The other one must not have been set up properly. So the title went in there. Otherwise, I would have just had to rename that, but it's so much easier when you don't have to. Okay, so this variable view is a shortcut way to edit your database. And the first thing you want to notice is this type of data. Is it a string, which means it's text, or is it numeric, which means it's a number? And this is set up properly. Usually it pulls it in, but just check, right? So I actually could change this phone number to numeric, or like something, there's like a custom one, but that's fine. A string is fine. Okay, and then the decimal points, if you want to fool with that. The location, typically this should have copied over, but this is what's going to show up in any of your charts. And you'll have to do a ton of editing if your labels aren't right. So make sure those are right. We'll talk about values more, but this is where if I had like 1 is strongly agree, 2 is agree, you put all that in here. If you have any missing data, I frequently use 99 or 999. You would just put in, right here, 99, and anything that was missing, anything that was coded as 99, SPSS would know it's missing. Now here, is where you make sure how wide your columns are. So sometimes I'll come in and just put 10 to make it an easy to work with. This is really important. We're going to talk next week about nominal, ordinal, and scale. And it's your level of measurement. And so nominal just means name. Ordinal means it's a number. And it's like a race. We know who's first, second, and third, but we don't know the distance between them. And a scale is numbers, and we know the distance in its assumed equivalent, like a Likert scale, like 1 is strongly agree, 2 is agree, 3 is neutral, so on like that. Although sometimes that's not true. For the sake of argument, we'll just go with that. So these all mean this is a name, which that's correct, and this is a scale, and that's correct too. So if that's not set up properly, you'll have problems later on. So you want to do that. Now, when I do something in here, it's going to give me an output window. And I'll just kind of jump ahead to what we'll do next week so you get an idea. If I look at the descriptives, and let's say I want to know the mean of these two numbers. You don't have to know how to do this. I'm just kind of showing you, and I'll show you more. Actually, this is what we'll cover in class. I'm going to continue and okay. Just to show you that this window pops up, right? And this is some work I was doing somewhere else. Or actually, this is just kind of notating everything I've been doing in the file, right? And then these are my descriptives. So this is this separate window that pops up, and you save it as, you'll notice up here, I have it saved as an SPV file. So it's called a SPSS output file. And the data file is always s.sav. And so that's how you know it's a data file. Okay. So I've showed you a little bit about SPSS. Let me see what else is on the list here. The windows. So really, I'm just gonna show you how to sort. You go to data, sort cases, and let's say I want to know, again, the location. I could do that, and then let's say I want to know sales within the location. And the way I'm doing it is creating the levels. It's going to pop up the output window and tell me what I did. So I have this record of everything I've done in the database, and then here it is. All right. Okay. So make sure you review this, make sure you open up Excel, do some of the, you pull up this database, do some of the things that I was doing. The great thing about this video is you can pause it and work side by side with me, and just pause it while you practice this. So practice getting in Excel, practice getting in SPSS. Because one of the things is we're going to be looking at your screen on Saturday. You're going to be showing us your work. So I want you to feel really comfortable. Now, if you want to practice some more, and I suggest doing that, let me look at my files here. I have a practice homework for this, and I'll send that out on email with this link. You don't have to do it, but it will make you feel more confident, just to give it a try and make sure you feel comfortable with it. So we're going to be covering Unit 2 in class, and I'm going to send out another video on Unit 3. And you will have wanted to practice both of these before we cover Units 2 and 4 in class. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any comments, any questions about this, the discussion board is a great place to just jump in and ask some questions. You can also send me an email, either way. But I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.